Good afternoon, everyone. This Tuesday, June 16th, 2026 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Hawkins, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Corrigan. Here. Edmonds-Mans. Here. Afkin.
Here.
Maboot.
Here.
Wendland.
Here.
And Burdick. Here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, everyone, will you please stand, remove your hats, and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On this upcoming Friday, we recognize and honor Juneteenth, a day that commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans and serves as an opportunity to reflect on our nation's history, celebrate freedom, and reaffirm our commitment to equity and inclusion. I invite our community to join the City of Lake Oswego and the Lake Oswego School District on Friday, June 19th for our Juneteenth commemoration event, Mafanikio, Freedom, Progress, Achievement, at Lake Ridge Middle School from 1 to 4 p.m. This year's celebration, planned in partnership with local students, honors the journey from freedom to progress and highlights the achievements of today's youth and community leaders. The event will feature student performances, speakers, art, music, food, and opportunities to come together in celebration and reflection. We hope you'll join us as we commemorate this important day and celebrate the strength, resilience, and contributions of Black Americans throughout our nation's history. You'll find our Juneteenth proclamation as well as all other proclamations on the city website. And now is the time on the agenda for public comment. If you are here to provide public comment and have not already done so, please fill out one of these white forms and hand it to Ms. Hawkins. We have Jeff Goodman up. Mr. Goodman, good afternoon.
No tie? I'm just kidding. No tie? No, it's too warm for a sweater. Thank you for this opportunity. I am here today on behalf of the Oswego Heritage Council for two reasons. One, to invite you all to our next exhibition, which will have an opening on Saturday, June 27th. It's an exhibition featuring quilts of many, many ages, and it's going to be a marvelous presentation of various ideas and they've done in these beautiful quilts over many years. Secondly, the fact that it is on a Saturday, we're inviting you and all of those who are watching or listening on their computer, coming on Saturday, is that we have, beginning earlier this year, been opening the Oswego Heritage House on Saturdays due to the successful implementation of a docent program. We have a number of volunteers who are coming on Saturdays between 10 and 2. So now when people come to the wonderful farmers market on Saturday, they now also have the opportunity to take a short walk up the street and come to the Oswego Heritage House. Hope that you can come by on June 27th or some days afterwards and enjoy the quilts and spread the word about we're now open on Saturdays. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you inviting us to that. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment? Okay. And we're going to move on to the consent agenda. There are two items on the consent agenda. We have the declaration of the vote for the May 2026 primary election and Resolution 26-31, which is adjusting the compensation of management and confidential employees. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, well, we'll give it to the right side here. Motion made by Councilor Mans and seconded by Councilor Corrigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing and consideration of Resolution 26-27. This is adjusting the budget for the biennium commencing July 1st, 2025 by adopting a supplemental budget and approving resource requirements and making appropriations and certifying also Resolution 26-28, which is certifying a new tax levy. We will start with a review of the hearing procedures by Ms. Tatoyan, City Attorney.
We will now open the legislative public hearing on Resolution 26-27, adjusting the budget for the biennium commencing July 1, 2025 by adopting a supplemental budget, and Resolution 26-28, certifying a new tax levy, starting with a presentation by staff. Testimony will then be received by the public. At this time, we're ready for Director Cross.
Good evening,
Mayor, councilors, my name is Sean Cross. I'm the finance director. After the passing of the GEO bond for the South Shore Fire Station, this resolution basically is just adjusting the budget to as we sell those bonds, and then certifying that the new tax levy is just for the GEO bonds to actually pay for the debt service for those.
Any questions of Director Cross? Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. I'll ask, is there anyone here who would like to testify on this resolution? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move to adopt Resolution 2627 and 2628.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilor Boop and seconded by Councilor Wendland. Is there any discussion? Okay, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, those two motions pass 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Director Cross. We will now conduct a public hearing on Ordinance 2977. This is adopting fire code amendments. We'll again start with a review of the hearing procedures by Ms. Satoyan.
We will now open the legislative public hearing on Ordinance 2977, adopting fire code amendments, starting with a presentation by staff, and then testimony will be received by the public.
All right, Fire Marshal.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Amos, Fire Marshal. I'm here tonight proposing adopting the ordinance 2977, which adopts the 2025 version of the Oregon Fire Code based on the 2024 International Fire Code with state amendments. This adoption is simply changing from the 22 to 25. It does not change any other ordinance or any other references, has no financial or fiscal impact through this adoption.
Any questions for the Fire Marshal? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on this Ordinance 2977. Is there anyone here who would like to testify regarding this ordinance? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move to enact ordinance 2977.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilor Burdick and seconded by Councilor Corrigan. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Amos. All right. Now we're going to move into our study sessions. We have two study sessions this evening, and the first is on the Emerald Ash Borer Readiness and Response Plan. I'll invite Assistant City Manager Megan Phelan to please come forward. Company.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Courtney Wilson, and I'm the Urban Forester.
My name is Caleb Simpson. I'm the Natural Areas Crew Leader.
And we're here to discuss Emerald Ash Borer and potential funding options to facilitate our readiness and response plan. So just a brief overview about what Emerald Ash Borer, or EAB, is. It is an invasive pest that originated from Asia and attacks all species of ash, olive, and white fringe tree. EAB was first detected in the Midwest in 2002 and has since become the most destructive and costly pest in U.S. history. And it was actually first detected on the West Coast in 2022 in Forest Grove, Oregon. The way that EAB attacks ash trees is that adult beetles lay eggs on the bark of ash trees, and larvae, after they hatch, they tunnel beneath the bark and feed on the tree's inner tissues. And this results in the galleries that are pictured in that top photo. And what those galleries do is that they eventually cause the restriction of nutrients for uptake in those trees, and that causes eventual die-off and canopy thinning. And repeated infestations of EAB eventually result in tree death within 3 to 5 years of that initial infestation. EAB does have a 99% mortality rate as well. And the only treatment for EAB are systemic insecticides, but that treatment needs to be performed every 2 years throughout the tree's life. And the city does have a significant ash tree population on our public lands that border high-value targets such as homes, natural areas, parks, trails, and sidewalks. The nearest infestation is actually less than 5 miles away in King City and Westland. It has not yet been detected in Lake Oswego.
This map here is the 2025 EAB map that ODF released. As you can see, all the different dots are known infestations that were found by 2025. There are new infestations in West Lynn and King City that were found last month, but they just haven't updated the map yet. So it's going to show that we don't have any infestations yet in Lake Oswego, but there is some nearby.
Pictured here are mature ash trees that are lining the street in Toledo, Ohio. This was before an EAB infestation in 2006. And pictured here are those same trees 3 years later after an EAB infestation. As you can see, all of them have died and they had to be removed. Removal of these larger mature ash trees do become more costly after they've been infested due to the fact that the wood becomes brittle and it is no longer safe for arborists to climb these trees, so they can only be removed with specialized equipment such as bucket trucks or cranes. And pictured here are ash trees infested with EAB in King City. Based on the current condition of these ash trees, it is likely that the infestation has been in this area for at least 3 years due to the advanced state of decline in these trees. And this was taken on Southwest Romeo Terrace. And pictured here are 2 ash tree lined streets in the Westlake neighborhood of Lake Oswego. The photo on the left was taken along Bunick Drive, and the photo on the right was taken on Parkview Drive. As you can see, these ash trees are currently providing a significant amount of tree canopy cover to this neighborhood. Loss of these ash trees due to EAB will result in significant tree canopy loss and will change the overall look and feel of the neighborhood. Residents here will experience the impacts of the urban heat island effect, which is where urban areas become warmer than surrounding rural areas due to the developed surfaces absorbing and retaining heat. With the loss of these trees, that effect will become more compounded. And although replacement of these trees would occur after an EAB infestation, it would likely take 10 to 20 years for those new trees to provide the same canopy and environmental benefits that these mature trees are currently providing.
EAB will also cause a significant amount of damage in our natural areas. Photo on the left is an example of an ash tree that was infested with EAB. They do become very brittle and become susceptible to felling or falling over from the base of the tree, affecting especially high-value targets. On the right side is an example of a natural area. Ash trees commonly occupy the main canopy space for a lot of natural areas in our wetlands and riparian spaces. We have examples of this in a lot of Lake Oswego parks, such as both of the Belugas, Canal Acres, Bryant Woods, Howland Free Ponds, and a bunch of open space in the Westlake neighborhood.
Pictured here are some EAB-infested ash trees that have caused infrastructure damage due to the fact that they have brittle wood, so they begin to crush houses, cars, sidewalks, etc. Once a tree has more than 30% die-off, it is too late to treat them, so the only option there to manage it would be removal and replacement. But after that 30% dieback threshold, that is when it is no longer safe to climb these trees, and that's where we start to see more costly tree removal fees due to the fact that that specialized equipment is required to access them, especially in parks or natural areas where arborists would usually climb those trees to access them.
All right, now on to what we've done. So in 2025, we did a parks ash tree inventory. We inventoried with interns ash trees in our parks, as well as other public-owned properties such as City Hall, fire departments, and like water reservoirs. We did not inventory any of the right-of-way trees. That was a much bigger project, and we're also utilizing interns where we only had to identify ash trees. From this, we did find that a majority of the ash trees on publicly owned properties are found in about 8 different parks. And you can kind of see it on the hub on the map where you have both of the Belugas, Bryant Woods, Canal Acres, Hallinan, Free Ponds, Foothills, and some of the open space properties in the Westlake neighborhood. During our inventory, we kind of broke up how we inventory the trees based on a safety first priority. So in the blue space on the map, you see what we did a 100-foot buffer from park borders, and these are borders that have high value targets within range. We used a 100-foot buffer based on the maximum height of ash trees when they're at full adult age. And then in the purple space, we did a 60-foot buffer between our pathways and trails. What you can also see is that we did not inventory any of the interior ash trees. So this is an example of Bryant Woods Park, where we would also have a bunch of ash in that kind of green space outside of those two buffer zones. So we will have a significant portion of our parks that have a lot of ash trees, like thousands of ash trees, that we did not inventory just because they're not within range of any high value targets. From our inventory, we broke up the trees that we found into 4 different tiers to kind of triage them based on priority. So tier 1 trees are trees that are within range of a high value target and are currently showing signs of decline. These are not signs of decline from emerald ash borer, but are just showing signs of like either not enough water or just in poor health condition. And we found 67 trees in this category. Tier 2 are trees that are within range of a high value target but are showing current fair or good condition. And we found 1,007 trees in this category. Tier 3 are trees that are within kind of the falling range of a pathway or trail, and we found 454 trees. And then tier 4 trees are the ones that are not within range of a high value target. So these would be like small trees in those buffer areas, but they're only like 20 feet tall while being like 60 feet away from a home. And so they won't become a hazard to any high value targets. And again, I did put a table of the 8 parks where you see 80% of the trees that we inventoried in those first 3 tiers.
We are currently working on an EAB readiness and response plan. This is a 5-year response plan that covers several management strategies. This response plan also follows the one that the Oregon Department of Forestry has also posted. There's several management strategies, the first one being removal and replacement. So this would be removing ash trees prior to an infestation and replacing them with more resistant species. However, removals with ash trees can only take place between the months of October through April to prevent the spread of EAB to other surrounding areas. The second management strategy would be chemical treatment. This would be used on our larger trees, more culturally significant ones. There is a really small window, though, to do chemical treatments. It's only about a 1-month window between May and June, and this window is becoming shorter as we start to experience hotter and drier summers. We are doing chemical treatments on a few of our ash trees at Foothills Park, and we are considering starting them in West Beluga and Bryant Woods as well. And then our last strategy would be no action. So these would be for our trees that are not near any targets. Think of ones in natural areas, not near trails, that sort of thing, ones that can kind of just become habitat once they die. And the city is currently in the process of creating a RFP for a right-of-way tree inventory. So we don't currently have a public tree inventory that provides us with a species breakdown for what kinds of trees make up our canopy. This inventory would also collect health data as well as species condition. We also currently don't have an idea about how many ash trees we have in our public right-of-ways, as that inventory that Caleb mentioned earlier was only done in our parks and on city-owned properties. So once we have that data and we get a better idea of just how many ash trees we have in our public right-of-ways, that would better inform our response plan. And pictured here are some cost estimates that we received for removal from our tree care contractors. As you can see, removal costs do vary widely depending on tree size and location. These prices also don't reflect inflation or rising costs. Pricing is currently relatively low due to limited competition for scheduling, but we expect as other municipalities start to encounter EAB, scheduling with these contractors will be more difficult. And once we do have EAB, these costs will be expected to rise due to the fact that these companies won't be able to climb these trees and they'll need to use that specialized equipment. Again, another challenge is that very small treatment window to inject these trees. And removal can also only take place between the months of October through April. And as we prolong facilitating our management plan, trees will need to start to be treated so that we don't have mass die-off in the city. We'll want to stagger those removals, but after 5 years, it's expected that most trees will be dying from EAB. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. So what's the timeline for getting the right-of-way inventory done?
So currently, we're working on the request for proposal. A lot of firms that provide tree inventories can only do them in the summertime when leaves are on for more accurate data collection. So the likelihood of having the inventory done this summer is likely pretty slim, so we might have to start early next spring, but we hope to have a contractor on board by the end of this summer.
Okay. And any idea how long you think it will take?
Based on the feedback I receive from consultants, the inventory collection only takes 3 to 4 months. Really, it just depends on just how many trees we have. I've received a wide variety of estimates for the amount of trees we have in Lake Oswego. So it's somewhere between 30 to 60,000 trees in our right-of-way, but right now it's hard to quantify since we haven't had an initial tree inventory done before. We're just kind of guessing based off of LiDAR data.
It'd be so great if that Google car, is driving around, if it was taking the tree inventory.
Yeah, and some companies do inventory that way where they just drive a vehicle down roads and it picks up data. Other companies do it where they have, boots on the ground, arborists actually walking to each tree and collecting that data.
So in the tiers, we have we have pathway because it's in parks, near homes, pathways. But these right-of-way trees, they'd all be, what kind of tier would you put them in? Some could be near homes, of course, but some, the hazard would be, falling in the roadway. Would it be more like what tier would you kind of think those would fall into?
So the tree inventory that was done in that parks was kind of like a more basic inventory. So we just had interns just putting them into those 4 tiers. That was just purely based on, health condition as well as what targets were nearby. These necessarily wouldn't be put in tiers. We would just get a more details about the health condition of the trees, but likely, with street trees, those would be considered likely in that tier one category if we were to categorize them that way, just because they would be near lots of targets such as cars, sidewalks, roads.
So would the strategy, one more question among my colleagues, would the strategy be under the different funding scenarios? Like if we were to dedicate between 500 and 777,000 to this, would that cover all of the tier 1 and a portion of tier 2 trees? What kind of results could we expect to see from that level of investment?
Yeah, so the funding strategies that we put together would be to cover all of the park trees as well as the right-of-way trees, but those are just estimates based on the amount of trees that we think the city might have. So that is a lower estimate. That's based on, I believe, we're estimating, 500 ash trees in our right-of-way.
And all of the park, so all the tier 1 trees?
Yes.
And tier 2 and tier 3.
Yep, and that would also cover replacement cost as well.
Okay. And what would be the total? What are you estimating as the total cost?
So we did these over, sorry, I'll speed up my slide so you can see what he's referencing. So this would be for a 5-year funding option. So these would be amounts every year for that 5-year period.
But under, what would be but they're different amount, like the lower amount would be for a longer period of time? Yeah.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, but yes, just to also kind of frame the conversation, there was a council initiative early this year that we produced a strategy and to address the impact of EAB as part of a council initiative. And so as Courtney mentioned, we're preparing that readiness and response plan. In order to do that effectively, we want to have a better sense from council from this evening on what type of funding level there's appetite for, at least in the initial first year, and then as we head into the budget process in the next for the next biennium. We are concerned about timing with regards to getting ahead of the EAB before it becomes a situation where the trees are too brittle and we have to hire more specialized equipment or have more costs associated with that. And so really what we're looking for is direction tonight so that we can figure out the best strategy to impact those highest tier 1 vulnerabilities, and then spread out whatever we can to address that over whatever time frame is appropriate based on the funding direction we get this evening.
Well, I guess thank you, thanks Megan, that's helpful. And I guess I imagine my colleagues are trying to figure out is, if the cost increases, the more the infestation grows, the cost removal, would it be better to spend more upfront? Would that save us money in the long run? And if we did a lower funding, like if we did 500,000, say in year 1, what is, over a 5-year plan, I'm imagining, does that cover all of the tier 1 and just in that first year? Trying to ascertain, at what different funding levels is it reducing our risk and reducing our overall cost?
So as you have lower funding levels, it's going to spread out the costs pretty significantly. And so it's hard to guess the full cost of it. So we did some simulation funding where if we did 500,000 per year, it would likely spread it out over about 13 years. But that is currently at the rate that they would be charging us today. The inflation costs as well as costs for removals is going to increase pretty significantly. It's been shown that in the Midwest and the East Coast. And so it's hard for us to kind of guess how much removal costs are going to cost 10 years from now. So it would be cheaper in the long run to fund it more upfront, get the work done early rather than spreading it out. So the total cost would be less, but then you'd be putting more money.
So putting 1.1 million per year, that's be a 5-year plan.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Mans.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. One, with this infestation beginning in the Midwest, have they seen any indication that the EAB has become immune to whatever pesticides they're using? Have they had to recalibrate, or have things remained stable once the trees have become treated?
So in the Midwest, because they were the first hit with EAB, they didn't really have the chance to treat their trees.
I see.
But studies have shown that the product used, it's called imamectin benzoate, is very effective at preventing an EAB infestation in a tree, but it's really just that long-term commitment. Our city's able to, provide that treatment every 2 years for the remainder of that tree's life. So often they'll opt to remove and replace them instead.
Okay. Second question is, if the city finds itself with a batch of dying ash trees, and I know this would be difficult to answer, but we've been talking a lot about urban wildfire problems. How quickly do these trees die once infected?
So mortality is expected within 3 to 5 years after
you did mention
infestation.
That, and I apologize. So within 3 to 5 years, but within that time, obviously the tree is weakened.
Yep, you'll start to see canopy dieback, thinning. Telltale sign of an ash tree with EAB is you'll start to see canopy dieback from the top down. The adults tend to live in the upper canopy of the tree, so it's pretty uncommon for you to see the adults flying around unless you're up in the tree. But if you suspect EAB in an ash tree, people will often take a knife and peel back the bark, and you can usually see the larvae gallery activity.
And that is why our parks are Tier 1, I'm understanding, Waluga, Hallen, and our open space parks?
The tier 1 referred to trees that had the high value targets as well as were already showing signs of decline. Again, this wasn't EAB decline, but could just be they were in bad condition or planted badly or just other signs of decline.
Okay.
Other things were causing the decline. And so those are ones that they're probably nearing like a hazard state anyway, so it was kind of like preemptively finding some hazard trees that happen to be ash trees. The tier 2 were the ones that were in good condition but have high value targets.
Okay. I was thinking specifically of Hallen and Woods, which suffered greatly in the ice storm, so I don't know the condition of the ash trees in that area, but, okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Mans. Councilor Wendland.
Thanks for the presentation. Do we know what the percentage of our tree canopy are ash trees? And is it like 20%?
We do not. We only know what the overall tree canopy coverage is for the city.
Right, but I mean, are we talking 50%, 20%? I mean, even a ballpark, do we even know? Kind of, I guess my point, what I'm trying to drive at is if we take every ash tree out, what is Lake Oswego going to look like? I mean, when you look at the streets and everything else, I mean, and if it's a 20-25 year rebound or recovery timeframe, that's definitely going to change the entire look of Lake Oswego. And I guess I would like to see some modeling to say, okay, what would it cost to treat instead of cut? And, you know, is that going to be $250,000 a year? And if we just continue that, certainly in our you know, in some of our neighborhoods, it's just all ash trees. I mean, and so that's going to have a devastating effect on the neighborhoods. And so I guess I would like some modeling to look at what it would take to treat. And then are the estimates based on huge volume, or are these estimates based on if they just go and take a tree out that we identify and then they go home at the end of the day? And the reason why I'm saying that is that I think we need some cost analysis to say, okay, if we give you a 3-year contract, I want a 40% reduction in your estimates, because these tree prices are super high. I mean, we know people that can do them, especially if we have the permits ready for them. I think these are obnoxiously high. And I would even say the city needs to model a scenario where we would hire specific people on the payroll to take down trees, because if you're looking at $500,000 a year or $1 million a year for 5 years, we could staff up and probably do it for half or 40% of the cost. I'm not a tree expert, but I just know the market. We've done a lot of tree work over the years with different people, and I just, and then I look at where some people on your estimates are higher on an in-park haul all debris versus open space haul all debris, and then others are the reverse. So it's kind of like, I'm not quite sure if they know specifically either economies of scale or going in and looking at things. I just think some more work needs to be done, because I will tell you, just feedback-wise, I mean, yes, we need to address this, but the city doesn't have $1 million a year, or if we do, I would say that we need to really look at the priorities of the city with the other needs that we've been hearing for all kinds of other things, and really make, I mean, it's kind of like choosing your children, which one do you want to support, and hard decisions, but it's just a lot of money. So anyway, I'd need more modeling.
You asked a few questions there. Did you guys get all of Councilor Wendland's questions?
Could you repeat the questions portion of it?
Questions?
Okay, I mean, I'm just asking for modeling for if we treat, what it would cost to treat the majority of our good, healthy ash trees so that we don't have devastation in some of these neighborhoods.
I did do some modeling for treatment of the trees that were inventory for the parks inventory. It ends up not being the full set of trees, but it was like about half of the trees. And with those, it was in the range between 300 and 400,000 every other year. One of the biggest concerns was the number of hours it takes to treat the trees, because you're getting into the 300 to 400 hours for treating trees, and it has to get done within about that 1 month range. And so finding arborists that are willing to dedicate time to treat trees is going to become very difficult. Especially when other municipalities start removing trees, they're going to prioritize removal just because the contractors make more money off those.
Right. Well, I mean, it's great to eradicate this. I understand what you're saying, but there's the cost of the trees being gone and a 25-year recovery. I don't know how people are going to feel about that in the city. It's a hard decision.
But financially, it sounds like it would be more expensive to, into perpetuity, treat these trees every 2 years.
Yeah, so the main strategy has been to treat until you are essentially having some replacements. Those are building up canopy, and then you start slowly removing other trees, just so you're not having a full canopy loss.
Right.
To give you some context too, in natural areas, we have already been replanting, especially in the spaces that we're not planning on doing removals for the sake of anticipating canopy loss. And so we've been doing some of this already. It's not going to be, we're not 20 years ahead of the EAB being here, so unfortunately it's not going to be the exact same. But we have kind of initiated that process. A lot of the removals are going to be for that buffer space, strictly for like safety concerns.
Right. Okay.
And you asked about the rates. Are these rates based on this kind of volume or?
Yeah, so I know for sure at least the tree care rates were based on volume. They didn't give us any sort of, this is what percentage we're taking off, but they were based on high volume removals and wanting to be like the company that we go with. I do believe Bartlett, in their consideration, the reason why the in-park haul debris was higher is because they're also considering stump grinding as part of that, which may or may not happen. It's kind of by a case-by-case basis.
And then why were some higher for in-park and lower for open space and the reverse for others?
Oh, that's what I was referring to for the, I think Bartlett was the only one that had the higher in-park with haul debris. I think they were incorporating stump grinding as part of that price.
I see. And in the park, I mean, they have to kind of go into the, like, walk in there and.
Yeah, if it's an open space, it's like, one of the main challenges for like future down the road is we don't want trees to get past that 30% die off, because eventually if you have a tree that's a large 100-foot tree near like 10 feet from a home, you're gonna need a crane to remove that tree just because it becomes unsafe. You can't climb it, and felling it is questionable because once you have enough die off, it becomes brittle, and it's questionable about which way it'll fall.
Good questions. Okay, Councilor Boop.
Yes, I thank you for your presentation. I have been really thinking about this EAB, and I side with Councilor Wendland. I did some research. I'm pretty sure your research are more valid, as I am not an arborist. I think the EAB will last, according to my research, 8 to 10 years, not more than that. We can fight them between 8 and 10. That's the response I get from the research I have. And if we take into account your professional treatment of 2 years, it's around 800,000 a year to treat 2,700 trees. I'm pretty sure we have more than that in our parks and around. So removing all the ash trees is going to be devastating. I mean, it's, for me, we need to fight back. It's like we are capitulating. The things come and we capitulate. I mean, we got to fight them. And it's possible. I was checking, I'm not very good at math, but what I found is if we continue to give, and also I've been talking to city manager about that. We cannot always depend on arborists. We have to have our own people because we are a city. And maybe with a catastrophe of this huge impact, maybe it's time to recruit people to face this thing. And instead of putting this, cutting thousands of trees and asking almost 2,000 a tree is ridiculous. I mean, I'd rather we hire people and pay them and have them do the work. I know that, yeah, we're gonna say budget-wise it's more expensive, but I know Tree Unlimited, they cut a tree for $1,200. Not all of the ash trees. In my property, I have 8 ash tree, like around 10, and I was thinking of that. If we cut them, we have no more canopy for recess. And then we are planting. It's gonna take 20 years to have anything that can have some canopy. So honestly, for me, we need to fight. And maybe I am the liaison for parks. Maybe the debate can continue there. Maybe ask with all the research we have, with all the cities. I think it's in 30 states that it went and it devastated. It's really a bad thing. Maybe if we talk to all of them, and see, because you say that in the East Coast, they didn't have time to fight because it came and destroyed the thing. They didn't know. We know. We know it's at King City, and honestly, it is in Lake Oswego. Like, let's be realistic and just say, if something is at King City, it's already here. So maybe we can like see. I agree on something. All the trees that are on right-of-way, we can do something because that's where legally the city can have a problem, like reaching target. We already know if it falls in somebody's trees, they legally say, oh, they knew, but they negligence. So we can, like the mayor were asking, to do the, like, recensement, how do we say again, recensement, like count the trees and see how many trees are in impact in ways where they can impact, they can be dangerous, and either we start treatment or we remove those trees. But imagine, I saw Westlake, those trees, you remove all of them. Wow, come on, folks. I mean, we have to do something. And whatever we have to do, it has to be now. That's why I was shocked that we are gonna wait next summer or next spring to start doing the work and then maybe cut them. It's almost a year. They are already, some trees will start dying. And then, like you say, the cost will go higher. So we should, in conclusion, I just think that we inventoried all the trees and then we start treatment. Because the budget that I see, $1 million can do treatment. Because it's not every year, it's every 2 years. And if a professional treatment in what I have is 220 times 2,700, I don't know if it's more, it's even not $1 million. So you're asked to cut them, can treat them, and we can give less to treat the trees and hold on for the next 10 years. That, maybe the EAB can go away.
I think one of the challenges to that, though, is we've already identified at least 67 trees that are already in poor condition. So I think the answer really is a combination of tree removal and treatment.
And that's why I say all the trees that are in impactful places, we have to remove them for legal. People will sue the city. Let's remove all those trees, maybe even starting next month. all of those
We
trees?
can remove trees in October, and so with the
Yeah.
direction we get with this evening, we would develop the readiness and response plan in order to be able to engage as soon as this October.
Okay.
Yeah.
As
But
soon,
but to help us develop that readiness and response plan, to come back with a thoughtful approach about looking at modeling, looking at treatment versus removal, it's kind of a cat and mouse situation. We're here for you guys for the first time. We're just looking for that direction on what the appetite is for budget. And I know you guys have a lot of conflicting demands. It's tough. I understand this is not an easy conversation to have. In the staff report, we did make a recommendation that council could consider reducing their transfer from the general fund to the street tree fund. I know that comes with trade-offs, right? That means less paving. Be clear. At the same time, I think there's a lot of good reasons why we feel we're in a really great window to start addressing this now. We have already done a little bit of tree removal this past fall. We want to keep that momentum. And so the do-nothing approach didn't feel like the right answer either at the moment.
Okay. Would we go out for I know we got these quotes here, but if we move forward on this, would we go out for an official kind of our RFP?
I think we have all these firms under contract already.
Oh.
I don't know if there would be a need to go out. And I appreciate the sentiment about maybe looking at hiring our own. Where I get nervous about that is the equipment you would need. We would have to invest in significant bucket trucks and significant equipment for us to be able to do that, let alone the staff. And typically when you're looking at hiring internally versus contracting, you look at making an investment over a long period of time. If we really have a window of 5 to 10 years where we're thinking we're going to be doing this work, and then after that, not so much, why make that significant investment in the equipment and the personnel when only for that short a time frame?
And if I could put a finer point on that, how many crews were we getting in, like, how many crews are these folks going to put out, and how many people per crew?
So each crew is usually about 3 to 4 people.
Right.
I'm trying to think of, at least one of the contractors was mentioning having like 6 to 8 different crews, if not more, because they can bring them in from different states to come in for
Because
X
of
number of years to help us out with this, because they anticipate there's going to be a huge volume in the Portland metro area.
The cost
Your pricing.
will go up as the demand, yes.
Yeah.
Councilor Corrigan.
So I really appreciate your triage approach. I think that's good common sense, and we absolutely have to do it. One of the things that I'm wondering is, do we know what the effects of the chemical are on human health? Because it ends up in our water. Is that well understood?
Yeah, so there's a few different approaches that you can do the chemical treatment. You can do a soil drench where you dig a trench around the tree and pour the chemical in. You can also do bark sprays where you apply it directly to the bark. And the most effective one would be injection into the tree. That method of applying it has shown to has the least amount of impacts on the environment. There hasn't really been a ton of studies how it'll impact human health, but as far as, wildlife, birds that feed on larvae are typically only going after live larvae, and the idea is you'd want to start these treatments before a tree has EAB, so it would act as a preventative. Therefore, wildlife such as birds wouldn't be feeding on larvae if the tree doesn't have any. But in order to have the least amount of environmental impacts, we would recommend the trunk injection method.
Okay. So I noticed that, so we're talking about, on option 4, we spend $5,500,000 over that 5-year time frame. So, $2,000 tree, that's treating 2,200 trees, and I have a feeling we more than likely are going to be facing many more trees than that. Does that seem reasonable? And am I picking up on that? It's going to be more than that. More than, right?
Sorry, repeat the question again.
Okay, so if you look at your option 4, which if we could dedicate $1.1 million every year, and we did that for 5 years, and you figure you're spending, $2,000 on a tree, each tree, So unless my math's a mess, which it could be, that's 22, roughly 2,200 trees.
Yeah, so
Am I
part of the
messed up?
estimation was assuming there's approximately 1,000 right-of-way trees and then incorporating the 1,500 parks trees that are within that tier 1, 2, and 3 categories.
Okay. Okay, so it doesn't quite get there, but it gets most of it taken care of. Okay. And the last question that I had was, is a tree inventory part of our tree plan? I do not recall. If we had a tree inventory, boy, we'd be a lot better off, I think.
Yes, it was one of the goals outlined in the community forestry plan.
Community forestry plan. And what time frame would that possibly become available?
You mean when the tree inventory would take place?
Yeah, when could that be done based on what you know?
Likely it would take place next spring or early summer, the inventory itself, but we hope to have a contractor or consultant on board by the end of this summer so that we can begin preparations for them to start that data collection next year.
Yeah, so for me, that's hopeful. I don't know, if we had more information, I think we could make a more well-informed decision
I agree.
about the entirety of the problem.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of challenging to make the decision without that complete inventory of the right-of-way. Yeah.
So option 2 is to designate an amount of money this year to start the process of the trees that we know and prioritize whatever other trees we can get into that year, and then come back for the budget and have a conversation about what direction do you want us to go in terms of the creation of the budget. Do you want to see scenarios? Do you want us to assume an amount? Do you want to wait for more information and talk about an increase? You have options, but I would highly encourage us to start with something now, and then whatever information we need to bring to you, but we also need some direction of like, what do you want to look at in the budget? What are the ranges that you want to look in the budget?
Okay. Councilor Afghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask some weird questions. You answered the chemical treatment, so I appreciate that. That was a very good explanation. What's the life expectancy of an ash tree? By the way, I was doing fact check as Councilor Mahboub was throwing these numbers out, so I have some more information. Based on my research, it says it could be up to 250 years.
Yeah, so life expectancy can vary wildly depending on where the tree is growing. So for example, ash trees grown in more urban areas, think like parking lots, parking strips, tend to have a much lower life expectancy than one that is growing in its more natural environment just due to compounding factors like that urban heat island effect, runoff, restricted growing area. Average life expectancy for a typical street tree, though, can be about 25 to 40 years, depending on the species. A tree grown in its, natural environment, you could see something like 100 plus years. But Caleb could speak a little bit more about the natural areas.
I can't say enough.
I don't need to know about the natural areas, but I was more wondering of our street and urban area. So that's about 25 to 30 years. So if we have an ash tree that's about 30 years, we should assume it's going to go and die.
Yeah, depending on, its growing space, if it's been given, an adequate growing area, that can increase the life expectancy. But as you can see, a lot of trees in Lake Oswego are not given proper growing space or often the wrong tree for that wrong spot.
Okay. I think we need to keep these information in mind when we make decisions. You were talking about replacing the ash trees, and some of them are underway. I'm sure you're not doing this, but I would just want to make sure we're on the same page. Let's not plant ash trees for a while, replant ash trees for a while. What's the life expectancy of this EAB, the bug?
Like just within an area?
let me make it easy. I went online and said, what's the life expectancy of a EAB bug? And it says 2 to 4 years.
That would be like the life expectancy of a single bug, but a population within a space, it continues to live generation after generation, even in spaces such as Michigan where it was first detected. Because I can give you reasoning behind it if you want.
Assuming that they have the food to live on, right?
Yes, and fortunately for EAB, unfortunate for us, ash repopulate very, very quick, and they can reseed at a young age, even when they're not susceptible to EAB because they're too small. So we'll consistently have a population of ash trees. They'll just never get big enough to be substantial trees, because once they start to get sizable, then they'll be killed by the EAB.
And this EAB, how far can it travel?
The maximum range is about 10 miles per year. That range fluctuates a lot. So it can travel further than that, like say if it gets onto a vehicle and moves, or like how it came to Oregon where it was within firewood. But usually it's also, the 10-mile range is based on a limited availability of ash in a current infestation zone. Normally it'll just go to the next ash that's right next to it.
All right, here's based on our conversation, here's what I'm thinking. The trees that are in bad health, I think those are outside of this conversation. We just have to go take care of them. Done. The ash trees, because of EAB, I'm struggling with just going through the city systematically and just cutting them down. When I read this information, I feel like this is a war we're going to lose no matter what. And if that's truly the case, the sooner we take care of it, the better it is. But I don't know if that's the case, because if we can chemically treat it, like you were saying, and it costs let's call it $250, and it costs $2,000 to cut a tree. So we're looking at about 5 to 7 years that we can wait this out and see what happens. So I'm struggling with save the tree or just get rid of the problem. And if we ever decide to go in and get rid of the problem, I want major, major cost reduction through those contracts, as well as I want to see if we can sell that wood. We can't? No? Everybody said, that side says no. I say I want to find somebody who buys that. But we need to have a strategy, and I'm not seeing this strategy yet. So the options you have put out there, none of them are attractive for me.
If I may also, and Director Cross can correct me if I'm wrong, what I also heard you say is for those hazard, the 67 trees identified that were already a hazard, just go ahead and take care of them. The department doesn't have the budget to do that.
Still need money, yeah.
Still need money. So if that's where you all want to focus for this particular evening to give us direction on that, and then we save the longer term strategic question for the budget process, that is an option as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor African. Councilor Burdick.
So I guess I'm curious, and could you just clarify what you're kind of presenting right now? Is it a combination of cut and injections or just cut?
So currently we'd be looking at combination of treatment with injection and removal. Treatment would be for trees that are significant in size and are, providing cultural significance. So think of some of our ash trees in some of our more prominent parks. And removal would be reserved for those trees that are already currently experiencing decline, or ones that are too small to treat. So it'd be a hybrid approach.
Okay, I thought that's what you were saying, and I appreciate that, because I think that's what we need to do moving forward is a combination. And obviously, I think starting with those 67 that have already been that are already at pretty high risk, I appreciate Counselor Wendland's bringing up, the tree canopy and the concerns with that. And that's why I think we need to do this kind of two-pronged approach, but also be really thoughtful, is how can we do this and try to maintain our tree canopy? And I don't think that means like every tree we sit there and say, let's just use the injections, because then you're having the price of the injections for all that time and cutting it eventually, if we kind of know that's where it's going to be at. So I don't see that we gain. But I think if we can develop a plan that really does some thought of how do we get some of these trees cut, replant, so we have, it's not going to be perfect, but do a better job of maintaining this tree canopy and a thoughtful approach to maintaining the tree canopy. And for me, especially in some of those, if they are providing the coverage over, our streets and asphalt and some of those hard surfaces to try to reduce that heat island effect. I think, to me, those are some really important areas that I'm concerned about moving forward. And I'm also concerned to, Councilor Corrigan brought up a really good question about what are the potential side effects. And it sounds like we don't fully know. We know that most, the injection is probably the least impactful. But so I want to be careful about just saying, well, let's just go and, inject all these trees. So again, I think the hybrid approach is best. And I think that we need to do that with strong consideration of maintaining the tree canopy and kind of looking at that. So I think we definitely need to make investment. I think thinking about what this year looks like, because it also might be that there's only so much we can do this year. And so I don't know if that means realistically, like, even if we all agreed, which I'm not hearing, like put the maximum amount in, I don't know that that's even feasible to spend all that money. And I know that we also have a lot on our plates of what we're trying to decide. We're just, money doesn't grow on trees. So,
Ash trees.
On ash trees specifically.
I was waiting for that.
So I think as a council, we have some, have to make some decisions and have some discussion of what's that right amount. So again, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure if that's,
Right.
$500,000. Do we need a little more than that? I'm struggling about the amount. I think we know we have to move forward. And again, I think before I can definitely say like this amount, I would like to kind of say, okay, if we're going to be a little more strategic, what does that look like?
Yeah.
At the same time of, if we do more now, it's potentially cumulatively less, but what's that impact to our tree canopy? So it kind of balancing those out.
I mean, do we have a sense of, so if we invest $500,000 this year, does that remove the 67 at-risk trees and treat the significant trees? And is there any mitigation built into this? I'm sorry if you already said that.
Yes, it'll also include replanting.
Okay.
Yeah. In those removal
So
spaces.
500, what does that get us? That's what we need to understand. Like, why 500 and not 770s? And how we came up with that 777? It's very specific.
The magic number, it's a tree number.
Lucky number.
I can explain the 777 if you want. That, so we created high, medium, and low values or budget estimations based on anticipated numbers of right-of-way ash trees, and then also incorporating the cost of removal and replanting in natural areas, or the park's property tree inventory, so those 1,500 trees. And so it's a bit of a mix of how many trees could be in the right-of-ways that are ash, as well as we utilize like low, medium, and high values for tree removal costs. Although we did get that table from the arborist companies, they all gave us the caveat of like, it could change pretty dramatically. Like, for instance, like to take one of them is like, it could cut, I'm giving you $950, but it could be $400, it could be $1,400. It's pretty broad range depending on where the tree is.
Okay, so the 500.
It was kind of a guesstimation for low, medium, and high. And so the 777,000 was based on the low range.
On the low, right. So what specifically would we get for the 500,000 in this year?
In the first year, I'd have to price it exactly out. It would be removal of the 67 trees would definitely get done. It would likely be removal of some of the tier 2s, and then treatment of some trees. I forget. We haven't calculated exactly how many trees we're going to be treating with that.
We don't know yet.
What was that?
We don't know yet.
No.
We don't, okay.
I don't have exact numbers for the 500,000.
And remind us again, the treatment has to take place in what month? Oh, May to June.
Now.
So, okay, so it'd be you'd be doing treatment next year.
Yeah, we've already treated some trees in foothills, but this would be for additional treatments.
Okay. Okay.
Can I,
Sorry, Counselor Mance and then Counselor Wendland.
Thanks.
Then-
I know there's areas that have more ash tree canopy than not. You've shown that. Has there been thought given to culling healthy trees, something that we don't generally like to do, but thinning that tree canopy in order to cut costs and save the trees that we can, while mitigating and planting trees? Obviously, you're still going to have a problem, but the fewer trees that we have to treat, along with the fewer trees that may become infected, might be an option. Has that been anything that has been used in your modeling?
Yeah, so that is the primary, like how we are organizing our modeling
Okay, so
for
the
the cost. Yes.
culling method, if you will. Okay.
Yeah, to give you an idea, the 1.1 million would be like if we were trying to do the most, I don't want to say cost effective, but like the least amount long term, and we were just removing them all as soon as we possibly could, it'd be about 1.1 million based on the estimations we had. If we are going past the 5 years, we are anticipating that we're going to have tree die-off if we don't treat any trees. And so it would be a mixture of treating trees to extend the timeline. That way we're not removing all, and it's just like a no tree space.
Okay, so the 500 to 777,000 range is a middle amount that will, as you explained, allow us to do a little of both.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Mance. Counselor Wendland.
I'm kind of getting a feeling like if we said, do what you can to come back with a plan for 500, I would support that. And then that would give us another 6 or 9 months of time that we get data and a better plan, and then we'll go through a budget cycle. That would be kind of where I would support.
Yeah. Okay. Is everyone on board with that?
I
Counselor?
just have a question.
Yeah, please.
You were saying the right-of-way trees, we really wouldn't know the numbers and so forth until really the assessment would be like next spring, and then it'd be a few months. So we're not looking at having that information until probably next summer to end of summer. Is that?
Correct, yes, for the preliminary data count.
So within some of these, again, the 500, the 777 amount, when you talk about right-of-way trees, we don't know those yet, though. So we're not, so I'm in agreement with your recommendation, because I feel like we could then next spring talk about the budget. So if we can give 500, but I don't know that we'd be spending all that because we're not doing the right-of-way trees yet in this next cutting period.
According to the numbers that have been presented, there's another 1,000+ trees in the tier 2?
Yes.
Yeah, in the tier 2 before you even get to the right-of-way trees, correct?
Yeah.
But the right-of-way, I'm guessing, are some of the significant trees we want to treat.
Oh, yeah.
Not cut. So, I mean, do we have
Yes.
those trees identified?
And
for
I
this?
think that's what I was also going to clarify, is that what I'm hearing is that's the right-of-way trees in the plan that's being developed. You're going to want to see how do we extend that and bring up the tree canopy? Like, what is the plan over time? But there are a significant number of trees.
Yeah, I think we have so many different, we got right-of-way trees, we got the tier 1, we got the tier 2, we got the tier 3.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think we have the hybrid approach, which I think everyone's on board with hybrid instead of radical removal. So do what you can present with 500.
Yeah, it seems like that's a consensus.
So if I may, just to clarify, we're comfortable with moving forward with dedicating $500,000 this year. Is council okay with us taking that from the general fund, transfer to the street fund?
Is that the only option?
I don't think that's the only option. You better come up with some other options. I'm sorry, because we just keep robbing that fund.
Yeah, Sean. I think, yeah. I was saying Sean would be.
And then with regards to building out the budget, it's helpful if staff can start with a number to build it out. Is 500,000, as it just a starting number to build out, acceptable or palatable?
I think so. It's a starting number, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Think head nods to that
Yes.
as a starting number for building out the budget.
And of course,
mean, we
can
wanna
adjust
be-
with more information with regards to the right-of-way trees and,
Exactly.
or we could start with a higher number and then you could also bring it down. There's
I
kind
mean,
of
I
pros
think-
and cons to both approaches.
I think we're all interested in lowering the overall cost of the program, not spreading it out over 13 years, certainly. So if we can be efficient with the money. Councilor Afghan.
Here's what I heard. We are going to cut those trees that are in bad health, and we are doing chemical treatment for the trees that are high value or heritage trees to make sure we don't lose them while we're doing this study. So from my perspective, if that's the scope, whether it's 300,000 or 800,000, we have to fund it. If that's not the scope, what is the scope we're talking about?
They're just talking about as we build a future budget.
Future budget is based on whatever scope we agree to. And I thought we couldn't agree on it until we do the study next year.
We'll be in the budget process though before that. And so for us to present a budget to you, it's nice to have a placeholder number.
It's a placeholder then.
So am I hearing anywhere from 300 to 800,000 then?
Yeah.
It's a placeholder, so you want to call it 500,000?
We don't have all the
it's a
information right now.
500,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay, Director Cross. What are our options?
So, I think I'm there. So yeah, back to the 500,000. Currently in our budget, as you know, we didn't have any excess dollars that we put anywhere. Like most of the time, we will put stuff into the capital reserve and it'll have it for the general fund to take out. We had $0 there this year. So if we take it from another part of anything, it'd probably be from a different department. We do have some overages that are some favorable variances in our revenues coming into the general fund for this year. But as you know, we also have to have money set aside in case the lake lawsuit, as you informed me, a few months ago, where's that money coming from? Probably from those favorable variances that we have in the general fund. So that will take most of that if that happens to come back from the Court of Appeals and we need those funds. We could take that and then find this money, take those funds for this and then try to find that money later for if we have to pay, or we can take some of the funds from the general fund's already giving to the street fund to come bring back to the general fund to use for this. But that's really the only two places where there are funds currently. The Parks doesn't have within their budget to absorb this.
And this money isn't already programmed that we're talking about?
We would have to delay some
It is programmed, but it would be from further out. The street fund does have quite a reserve for things that were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years out in the CIP. So we might have to slide something, or engineering will have to slide something a little bit a year to absorb this $500,000.
Right.
But in the current year, nothing would have to change.
What about contingency funds?
We can pull out of the
We
general
can pull
fund
out of-
contingency, but as soon as we take the money out of the contingency, because of our financial policies, the first thing that the money comes in, when we get our money next year, we have to then put it to our savings account, which is what the contingency, but I can do that too. But it's just, that's just going to take money from our budget cycle next.
Right, but at that point,
yeah.
we at least have, before the budget cycle, we have time to figure out where we might find $500,000 elsewhere. My point in this is that I know everyone just goes, oh yeah, it's the slush fund at the pavement. Well, you know what? Our paving index is continuing to go down, and we have the ability to keep it up, and at least keep it flat or going up. And I just hate to just always rely on that as the catch-all
I don't think we've ever pulled money from it. That's the thing, though.
Did for
What have we taken? Not that I
Pathways.
recall. No, it's always been no, that's a separate fund. That's the increase in the fee that we put out to the residents. But I
So
mean,
we started, like, say, 10 years ago, we started to put in $1 million, and then we got it up to $2 million. And then a couple bienniums ago, we got it up to $3 million for a couple of years, and then last biennium, we had it at $2 million a year. And then for this biennial, 25 to 27, we tried to get it back up to $3 million to do what you're saying, is to pay as much as we can. So yes, but have we ever taken money from it? Not really. We just sometimes don't give it as much. Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
same thing.
Going from three, yeah, you're mincing words, Mr. Finance. I mean, it's 3 million to 2 million, and then,
yeah. I mean, the fact is, though, anything in that we've got in the budget is a priority, something that, either is funding a community goal, council goal, something that's important. So no matter what, it's significant, but then this is significant too, and it's a good fiscal decision to save us, just like our investments in the streets are a good fiscal decision to save us more money down the road when we properly maintain them. But then we've got the trees, so it's, there's no easy answers,
And I just wanted to be clear that this is the one time only, and then going forward in the budget, looking for other alternative ways to fund, because there are some ways that we can do it in the future.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to be clear, it was just this 1 year.
Councilor Afghan.
Mayor, I think we have sort of tentatively made a decision. We're trying to figure out how to fund it. Shouldn't we give an action item to the city manager and say what are our options and what's not going to get done? Because I don't think we can answer that question here.
Well, can you come back with my sons? I mean,
Well,
I'm
the
kind
next
of-
steps are for us to finalize the readiness and response plan. So with this direction of the funding amount for this particular, that would be really, really helpful for us to be able to complete that. The plan is to bring that back to council for consideration and adoption on the August 4th meeting.
And we can come back at that time with where the money would come from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that sound good to everyone?
because we're on recess in August, so it should be a short meeting.
After. That August 4th meeting. Okay. Sound good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you,
Caleb,
yeah.
Courtney. Thank you for the report. Sean, thank you. Megan,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Good work.
Good questions, everyone. Okay. To an even more fun topic. We have a next study session on the wastewater treatment facility status updates. We have our Director of Special Projects, Stefan Broadus, and friends. Oh, he is right now. Oh, we'll take a brief recess. Sorry. Settle in.
That's right. It's tough to follow bugs.
Okay, we are back in order. We are going to hear now on a wastewater treatment facility status update. Mr. Broadus.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for having us. My name is Stefan Broadus. I am the Director of Special Projects here for the city, and today we will be giving a project update with a specific focus on our technical proposal that we've received for design, build, operate, and maintain services. So with me here today on my left is Kyle Rohr. He is the owner's advisor for the city. He works for a company called Corollo Engineers. And to my right is Michelle Green. She is the project manager for Jacobs, who is our design, build, operate, maintain contractor for the project. So here's a list of topics I'd like to talk about today. I want to start with goals and objectives. And that means two things. First of all, I want to connect our project to big picture city goals and objectives. And then I want to drill down to the next level of detail and talk about project specific goals. I then want to give a somewhat brief recap over the project history and explain the path that we took to get where we are today. I'm then going to hand it over to Michelle, who's going to give you a brief corporate overview of who is Jacobs. And then she's going to talk about the plant and its functionality and capabilities. When she's done with that, she's going to hand it back to me. I'm going to talk about the risks that are posed to the project. And I'm also going to circle back to our project goals and objectives and really talk about why it matters for the Lake Oswego community, as well as our partners in Portland. And finally, I will wrap it up by talking about next steps on the project. So, and forgive me for reading directly from a slide, but I think it's pretty important to capture these. I know a lot of time and effort was spent on each one of these words. So, council goal that this project aligns with directly is to strengthen public trust in the city through continuous improvement, outstanding customer service, infrastructure investments, and fiscal stewardship. And then the corresponding council initiative is to collaborate with the city of Portland to make a financially and environmentally responsible long-term investment in a wastewater treatment plant. So that's what we're here today to talk about. And then to take those and reword them so that they are a little bit more project specific, we've got a couple of goals that are specific to our project. And the first one here is to address aging infrastructure challenges. And like many communities in our region, in our country, we have a big challenge in front of us to responsibly plan for long-term future for our infrastructure, and specifically for this project, the wastewater treatment plant. And Tryon Creek is not getting any younger. That plant that's there today was built in the 60s, and a major rehabilitation or replacement is needed in the not too distant future. And that's what we'll accomplish with this project. Another goal for us here is for resilience. And I know resilience can be cliche, but it's very true with this project. We need to be prepared not only to face, I think, the danger that most people think of in our region when they think of resiliency, which is that earthquake that's looming out there, but also more predictable and more certain risk like growth. And we need to be able to make sure this plant can handle flows for the foreseeable future. Also, and this one's fairly obvious, we need to be good environmental stewards to our resources, specifically here, the Willamette River, which receives the effluent from this plant, but also more than just the river, the region as a whole in being energy efficient with the way we treat our water, as well as thoughtful in the way we transport and manage our solids that the plant produces. And finally, we want to be collaborative and supportive of the development that is planned in the surrounding area that is the Foothills District. So I want to pivot away from goals to start talking a little bit about the path we took to get here. As you recall, 2017, 2018, preliminary project planning began, and so that's where alternatives analysis were considered. I mentioned earlier the Tryon Creek treatment plant, the existing plant, was needed to be either replaced or rehabilitated, and through that planning effort, it was found that replacement was the preferred alternative. And so in 2019, a request for qualifications was issued, specifically seeking a partner that would provide DBFOM services, design, build, finance, operate, and maintain services, otherwise known as a public-private partnership or a P3. So in that model, we would be looking for an entity to provide turnkey services of a wastewater treatment plant, including the private financing that we would need in order to afford the significant capital investment that is construction of a new wastewater treatment plant. So about a year later, those requests for qualifications were shortlisted to the eligible responders, and the second step, a request for proposals, was issued. And then finally in May 2021, the top ranked proposer was selected, and that was a company called EPCOR. If you recall, the next few years was spent with EPCOR performing design on the replacement plant, as well as construction estimating of what that plant would cost. And that culminated in January 2024, in which we received their design submittal that included final construction costing. And at that point, the city decided to pay EPCOR for their services performed, but at the same time, elect not to execute a project agreement with them to build the plant, but rather explore other delivery methods that could realize this plant. And in October of 2024, we issued a request for qualifications for DBOM, and you'll notice the F was missing, of course. And what that means is we, as a project team, were really excited and satisfied with the process to date, except for the private financing element of that proposal was cost prohibitive. So we proceeded with a procurement method that was very similar to a turnkey system, with the obvious exclusion of the private financing. On that time, October 2024, the request for qualifications were due, and despite significant market outreach to possible vendors, which we expected probably 3 to 4 responses to, we did only receive 1 response to that procurement. And after some analysis from the project team of what our alternatives were, which included aborting the procurement in favor of something else, we ultimately decided to proceed, and we felt like that was the best path forward for the city. So in fast forward a little bit, last year, a couple of major milestones executed on the project. We closed our WIFIA loan, which is through the EPA, in order to continue down that path of replacing the private financing with public financing. So WIFIA is one part of that, and municipal bonds that we'll issue is the other part of that public financing component. And then a couple months later, we executed the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Portland that really describes the formulas and mechanisms for performing the cost share between the two cities for both the construction of the plant as well as long-term operations. Now, our most recent milestone, and what we're here to talk about today, is the proposal that we received from our design, build, operate, maintain contractor. Before I hand it over to Michelle, I wanted to highlight a couple of items that are different than the proposal that we received previously from EPCOR. And so, to name a few, the proposal that we're reviewing here today is a different treatment technology. We've got a very robust and conventional treatment technology that we're reviewing today, and Michelle will get into the reasons of why that is a benefit to the city. We also experienced a building code change during this process. So without getting too deep into the details of what that means is wastewater treatment plants are now considered along the same risk category seismically as a hospital or an emergency operations center. So that qualitatively what that means is after the design seismic event, we are designing this facility to not just remain standing like the previous building code called for, but to remain operational both during and then afterwards as well. So, which is a big benefit to the community, but also comes with some added cost. Another difference in the proposal is the end of term condition. So we are putting a little bit more emphasis on continuous maintenance and reinvestment into the plant so that the condition of the plant at the end of our term and throughout the years will be stronger. And then finally, energy, this proposal that we're reviewing today utilizes relatively significantly less energy consumption than the proposal we were reviewing before, and kind of ties into that environmental stewardship that I mentioned as a project goal previously. So with that, I want to hand it over to Michelle to give you an introduction to the corporation as well as an overview of the plant design.
Thanks, Stefan, and good afternoon. Jacobs is very excited to partner with the city on this substantial project, and I'm glad to tell you a little bit about who we are as well as about our proposal. So first of all, starting, who is Jacobs, right? We're a global company with Northwest roots. We've been operating in Oregon for over 70 years. We have $12 billion in annual revenue and over 45,000 employees. So Jacobs offers the financial backing and resource pool to address any project challenges. We're one of the few entities in the water market that self-performs design, construction, and operations and maintenance. And what that means for the city is that Jacobs will be the only entity that the city will interface with over the entire term of the design, build, operate, maintain contract. So further, Jacobs is #1 in Engineering News Record for wastewater design. Our water practice began in Corvallis, and that office continues to serve as one of our largest design centers for the company. We have 2,600 staff in the Northwest, nearly 350 professional engineers, and with over 70 years of working in the Northwest, we have delivered hundreds upon hundreds of wastewater treatment plant projects. And what that gives us is a really strong understanding of how to design, build, and operate complex wastewater infrastructure that performs under the demands of our unique weather patterns and regulatory climate. Jacobs also happens to be the largest provider of water operations and maintenance services in the Northwest. We operate 19 facilities. Some of those contracts span over 30 years. Our environmental compliance record is one of the best in the industry at 99.98%, and our contract renewal rate, which is where owners again choose Jacobs at the end of their contract term, is 98%. So our strong O&M, operations and maintenance expertise and presence here in the Northwest and the Portland metropolitan area specifically assures operational efficiency and performance, as well as ongoing protection of your investment. Bless you. And finally, Jacobs has delivered nearly 150 water and wastewater design build projects valued at about $6 billion total. Projects range in size from $10 million to nearly $2 billion, with the average size of our project in the last 15 years being about $200 million. Specifically, we have delivered 13 design, build, operate, and maintain projects. That doesn't sound like a lot. However, these projects are pretty unique, and over the last couple of decades, there's really been only a few dozen design, build, operate, maintain projects in the water and wastewater space. So this project really, frankly, falls within our sweet spot on a number of levels, and so this expertise that we offer allows us to optimize the design, build, operate, maintain delivery model to specifically align with the city goals for this project related to life cycle efficiency, long-term cost certainty, and lasting value. So those city goals have really driven our thinking as we took the design criteria provided by the city to develop a solution for this new facility. So where we started with kind of overarching philosophy was to develop an asset that contributes to Lake Oswego's vibrancy and economic strength. And I want to kind of highlight 4 different buckets of focus associated with our proposal. So first and foremost, we looked at optimizing the core treatment functions. Number 1, protecting the Willamette River. So this proposal provides about a 20% increase in capacity to accommodate for future growth. But it reduces the dry season pollutants that hit the Willamette River in the effluent by about 50%. It also will provide treatment for all flows during high rain events, which is not a functionality that's currently available at the City of Portland's treatment facility. Again, regulations evolve, and so it provides a higher level of treatment in both the wet season and the dry season. We're utilizing, as Stefan mentioned, robust, proven technologies, and that provides predictable and reliable performance, flexibility for future regulatory changes. These facilities are built for 70 to 100 years, and so we're anticipating the near term, but providing flexibility for the long term. And a focus on energy efficiency, which Stefan mentioned as well. So the power use associated with the technologies that we've designed around allow the facility to be responsive to the facility demands, resulting in a 55% less power on day 1 and a 20% less power at the end of the 30-year anticipated term as compared to the previous technologies that were considered. Secondarily, safety and reliability is a strong focus. We want to have certainly made sure that our facility is designed to be protective of O&M staff as well as the public, both during construction and during the ongoing operation and maintenance of the facility. We've taken a specific attention to truck hauling, so residuals that are required to leave the facility either to go to the landfill or to the City of Portland's facility for further solids treatment. That truck traffic is focused on off hours when there are less pedestrians and vehicles on the street. And Stefan mentioned the enhanced seismic criteria, making sure these facilities, again, are not just repairable after a major earthquake, but that they're still in operation. The third area that was a strong focus for us as we developed the proposal was looking to see how we could integrate into the city itself and the Foothills District specifically. So we have strict odor performance requirements in the contract, and what that means is that Jacobs is on the hook for financial damages if those requirements are not met. So odor complaints, those kinds of things, those are our responsibility. So we've tackled those hard to make sure that they don't occur. Our design mitigates for noise. We prevent nighttime light nuisance consistent with dark sky approaches. And then our approach to architectural and landscaping treatments are coordinated with the ongoing Foothills District planning effort. And finally, we are looking to protect the city's asset throughout the design, build, operate, maintain term. Jacobs is an industry-leading operations and maintenance provider, as evidenced all by 99th percentiles, as I referenced earlier. And we have a proactive maintenance strategy that includes preventative, corrective maintenance that's ongoing, as well as repair and replacement of components as they age. So just to give you a sense of that, the industry benchmarks for asset reinvestment for these types of facilities ranges from about 4 to 7% of the original equipment cost. We're investing 6% of our O&M fee back into that equipment. So, kind of middle of the range, a little bit on the upper end of the range, with the goal of making sure that we're protecting the city's investment on an ongoing basis in this critical asset. I think back to you.
Thank you, Michelle. So Michelle spoke about a lot of the plant's features and functionality, and I want to spend a few moments talking about some of the obstacles that are in our path in order to realize that plant. And when looking at risk, we have compartmentalized them in really 3 buckets. So performance, schedule, and cost. So performance, simply how well will the plant perform at treating sewage to meet our permit limits as set by DEQ. Schedule, how effective are we at delivering this plant on time, knowing that any delays will likely see increased cost in the form of escalation, and also knowing that the longer it takes for us to get a new treatment plant online, the more of a stranded investment we're making in Tryon Creek plant, just to continue to provide efficient treatment in the interim. And then cost, we need to continue to manage the risk of cost to this project to ensure that we are financially responsible for our ratepayers. And so when looking at those three buckets of risk categories, they really fall in between of who's the primary holder of those risks and what the pros and cons to the city of that arrangement are. So for the risks that fall under Jacob's responsibility, they contractually will be obligated to meet the performance requirements as defined in their scope. And so that risk is owned by Jacobs. They will be required to meet it, and there are certain damages in our contract for if they don't. They're also responsible for the pricing risk in that they've given us a proposal and certain items in there they will be responsible for if the price exceeds that amount that they've given us. Now, what does the city hold? The city holds things that you would typically expect in a contract like this. So changes in law, and typically, before I go down the list, they're typically things that are unforeseen at the start of the execution of the contract. So things like changes in law, unforeseen subsurface conditions, for example, and then acts of God. So, and the reason the city holds these risks is that they're incredibly difficult to predict. And by making the contractor responsible for those risks, our cost inevitably goes up. So what you see here is a balance of risk portfolio relative to the cost that the city has to pay in order to manage risk in that manner. So circling back to the project goals and objectives, and at this point in the presentation, I want to give an alternate subtitle to this slide. It's really just why it matters. Why does it matter to the Lake Oswego community? And so addressing the aging infrastructure challenges. In the last 15 years, the city has made incredible construction progress in the form of the Lake Oswego Tigard water treatment plant, in the form of the Lake Oswego Interceptor Sewer City through the lake. And those are projects that not only are award-winning in the region, but will be a pillar of our society for multiple generations to come. And this treatment plant is really the next project in that series of infrastructure investments for the community. And then as far as resilience to growth and disaster, again, this is looking towards not just being able to manage the population growth as we've predicted, but also to handle disasters, including maybe smaller, medium-scale disasters, such as larger rain events, so that we have the capacity to handle that, but also that major disaster of the design seismic event. Environmental stewards, so taking the existing treatment plant and improving upon it. A lot has changed in 60-plus years from when Tryon first went online, and we can take this opportunity to replace an aging facility with one that will provide better effluent to the river while using less energy than the previous proposal that we had on the table to do so. And then finally, be in collaboration with the Foothills District Vision. So we have seen, and you saw it in presentations just a few weeks ago, some preliminary concepts for what that district plan looks like. And our design has been in step with them from the beginning and is consistent with all of the alternatives that they're currently considering. And so we really consider the current plant design very compatible with what that development district is hoping to achieve. As far as schedule goes, next steps, today we're giving the technical proposal. Next week, we have the site tour of the Wilsonville treatment plant, in which we'll be able to experience, firsthand, a plant that's going to be very similar to what we're proposing here today. And then on July 21st, we're coming back to the council to present the second part of this proposal. So if today we were running through the various technical components of the proposal, on July 21st, we're talking about costs and impacts to the proposal. And then we return again in September. The idea there would be to discuss the project again and seek approval to move forward with a project execution and really begin in earnest. And if so, in December or thereabout, we would be looking at demolishing the buildings on site and breaking ground with construction. So with that, I want to thank you and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks to the two of you. Corollo and Jacobs has you've been on the project a long time, and it's our first time, I believe, with you here at the meeting. And I mean, Jacobs is a very highly regarded firm globally. It's great to have a company that brings your wide, expertise. I know you're a trusted partner to many jurisdictions nationally around the globe, and I think you guys too acquired CH2M Hill.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Most of our water group here is legacy. I'm not supposed to say that anymore. CH2M Hill employees, yes.
Will do the facilities that you operate, do they all kind of operate independently, or is there kind of, communication amongst your teams?
In terms of sharing staff, is that what you mean? So we have kind of both a regional and a national structure that supports all of our facilities. I think we operate across the country somewhere upwards of 200 facilities. So we have those, national resources and regional resources that do support each facility. In terms of sharing resources between, maybe this facility or the Wilsonville facility, the Vancouver facility, the other ones, that gets a little bit tricky because we have independent contracts with each of those agencies where there are opportunities to share resources, such as maybe if we have a laboratory and we can provide lab services that serve two facilities. Oftentimes we'll talk with our owners when those situations arise and say, hey, is this something that you're interested in? There'd be some cost savings maybe to both parties. So maybe I'll stop there and see if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does. No,
Okay.
that's very helpful.
Yeah.
The technology we were looking at before, we were excited about because it was just a little different and very efficient, although we know any facility will be more efficient than the current facility. What our community is very sustainability minded, and realize that, again, just the construction of a new plant is a big step forward in energy reduction and whatnot. But are there other features? Does Jacob share that same ethos like Oswego community shares in terms of a project that is sustainable in all ways, financially and environmentally?
Yes, absolutely. I think that environmental sustainability and kind of focus on, I could answer this, I could go on and on this one, kind of focus on circular economy, leveraging heat or reuse from facilities, those kinds of things are great ways to provide additional value out of these treatment facilities. I think that we have worked hard to balance here the city's criteria and goals. So we focused hard on energy efficiency, embedding that kind of throughout the aspects of the facility and the operation, and that starts with the process technology that we're proposing. I think that we are open to, as things evolve and as the city looks to invest beyond into what's capable, right? What's possible. We'd be very interested in chatting with you about that. At this time, we've looked hard at trying to balance, again, what's efficient and effective from a very reasonable life cycle cost basis without, really jumping into, here's all the really amazing, great things that can be done in the industry. So tried to find a balance there, but there's, from an ethos perspective, yes, Jacob's philosophy and culture is very consistent with the city's.
Thank you very much. Good to hear. Councilor Wu?
Yeah, Yeah, some of the question I'll ask them inside, when we are in executive session. I just was impressed when I was going to check on, not EPCOR, on Jacobs, and that you are everywhere in the world, in Singapore, and you in New Zealand. Wow, I just say, wow, it's big. And I checked, I really did my homework, and I found the only problem, not a problem, but just like some very important thing as the foothills is an urban renewal where we are gonna have housing. And you said in your presentation, the strict order performance and the truck, because these trucks, they're not your regular trucks. They have things with order and everything circulating. And in some cities, we can see that. And it's in Lake Oswego, they won't tolerate that. It's really, place where people won't accept that. And also the order control, because Jacob had problems somewhere where there were order when people, and I think you fix it now. It's in Wisconsin. And just like we are moving into this project, it's very important for us that we know your expertise, that it said that you are the best wastewater treatment, in the industry, you are the best. But there have been times when you have some problems, and I just want ahead of, in the public domain, that we recognize that foothills is a very important part in the project we have in Lake Oswego, that we are gonna make sure those are not gonna be a problem.
Couple of thoughts. It is very, very clear in the requirements that your staff and owner's advisor have put together that odor is very important. I mentioned that we're on the hook. There are significant liquidated damages within the contract should we not meet those requirements. So that's point one. Point two, you all are headed to the city of Wilsonville's wastewater treatment plant next week. That was a design, build, operate, maintain project as well. I was the engineering manager. Our staff still operate that facility. And those requirements that are in your contract, in part because Kyle was also engaged in the Wilsonville plant, are the same contractual requirements, almost to the letter, as the Wilsonville plant. And so that plant has been operating since 2015-ish. So I would certainly encourage you to chat with the city staff there to get their perspective. The processes there are a little bit different than they are here. There are some similarities, but I think that we have experience meeting those requirements. Nothing's ever perfect from the get-go. We do as best we can to minimize those instances. And again, where there are challenges during startup or problems, we fix them.
Okay.
Just to build off of Michelle's point there, we do have very strong contractual penalties for violating the odor control clauses. We've also tried to validate their design to really try to ensure that those never even come up, that we never even have to enforce those. And so that validation was done by two parties, one at a very detailed level by the technical experts at Carollo, and then also was performed by BES City of Portland, also validated that the proposed odor control is very robust. So we're looking at it from a couple different ways. We've got the contractual penalties in there. We also have third-party design validation to have a very high confidence that this odor control system is going to work very well.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Councilor Afghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director, is always so pleasant to listen to you give a presentation because your messages are always clear.
Thank you.
And that helps me articulate my question based on those. So I have several questions. You can tell me if that's appropriate for this session or other sessions. It was good to see that we are focused on noise. And I think you also mentioned odor. So those two things, and I believe I also saw the light. So great to know that we're focused on that because as we're expanding our downtown, those are big deals. Can you refresh my mind? What's the life expectancy that we're designing to? How many years?
So it depends on what component that you're talking about, right? So let me address it at a high level. Contractually, right, and I talked about that 6% reinvestment year over the entire course of the term. So throughout the course of the term, effectively, our responsibility contractually is to maintain all components to have at least a 5-year life for every component within the facility. So that's the ongoing reinvestment that occurs to upgrade components, et cetera. From a life of the plant perspective, right, industry would say that concrete in these kinds of facilities, you should plan on it lasting about 50 years, well maintained. We see that, 70 to 80, 100 starts to get a little sketchy, but so concrete, long time, equipment, major equipment, typically around a 20-year life. But in general, these facilities last a very long time, which is why I referenced how important it is to, make sure that the system is designed to be flexible to accommodate zigs and zags, either in regulatory changes or growth within the city or whatever that might be.
Right, thank you. By the way, I'm very familiar with your Corvallis team. Some of the industry's legend came from there for wastewater treatment. Director, I know that with the previous design or concept that it was supposed to be leading edge technology and those kind of things, the neighborhood associations had some representative to look at the design and hear what they do and what they don't do. Do we have that input on these traditional design and see how they feel about it?
We don't. I will say that we have just completed our evaluation of the proposal ourselves. Okay. If that's a direction we want to take, we could. I will say that from a output that would be observable and of concern to the public, not a tremendous amount has changed. While it is a different technology, it's a different plant. You can see that from the renderings. From a big picture standpoint, a lot of the major factors that you would consider getting input on relatively unchanged. So the noise, odor, all of the good neighbor factors that we bundle them up and we've labeled them good neighbor factors. A lot of those are still at or exceeds what they were with the previous design.
It was great to hear that we're very focused on energy reduction in pollution, and those kind of things. So thank you so much. Is this appropriate to talk about the capacity in this meeting or, okay, I heard 20% increased capacity. And I don't know what that baseline is that we're talking about 20%. And if the baseline is something that that's our capacity today, or is that above? So help me understand what we are currently running at?
Okay, so,
Let me finish my
sorry,
question.
sorry, I'm sorry.
What are we running at, not the capacity of the existing plant, and where are we going to end up? And the intent of this question is to make sure that we're not way over designing because we have a growth plan with Mr. Olson, and it's like, do we have all of this tied together?
Okay. So,
Michelle,
oh
let
yeah,
me
go
s-
ahead.
Let me introduce
Go ahead,
you
yeah.
to, okay, so I think it's a great question because we're inherently being pulled a little bit in opposite directions here, in that as engineers, with a critical facility like this, we want to be conservative. You don't want to miss this on the low side, right? But at the same time, being overly conservative is expensive. So a tremendous amount of effort went into finding the appropriate balance there of what's a conservative but not too conservative plan. And I'll let Michelle go more technical than
Yeah.
that, but that's kind of the big picture goal that we had.
Right. Yeah. So the 20% I referenced, just that calculation is basically the capacity, the current dry weather capacity of the Portland's Tryon Creek plant as compared to the dry weather capacity of the Lake Oswego facility. So that was the 20%. Now, what is unique about wastewater treatment plants in the Northwest, and you all have lived here long enough, you know that the summer conditions are very, very, very different than the winter, the wet weather conditions. So you effectively have to design the facility to accommodate both conditions. So the existing Tryon Creek facility, what is their current operating what do they see day to day in the dry season is somewhat less than their stated dry season capacity. I want to say it's maybe 6.5 as compared to 8, right? However, when we look at the wet weather capacity, the current Tryon Creek facility I referenced is not able to treat all of the flows that it receives or could receive in the wintertime during a 25-year storm event. That's our design criteria. So much of the design, if not the bulk of the design of this facility, is driven by responding to the criteria which says we want to treat all of the flows when it rains. Not most of the flows, and then the rest of it's mostly rainwater, and we'll let that overflow, right? So so there is capacity for growth almost inherently, because have to target that wet weather treatment scenario. And then the 20% value, right? Increase in capacity is driven by, what is the city and their owner's advisor looking at, land use planning, right? What do they think the dry weather flows will be in 2060? And we utilize that more to optimize the design so that it can respond and perform well in the dry season. Complicated answer. How did I do?
You did awesome. And there is an action item. I would love to see some of those high-level information, and it doesn't have to be here. It could be a one-on-one or an email, so I can understand everything you said. This is what I heard, that the current plant cannot accommodate the wet season.
That's correct.
And we are designing 20% above that.
The 20% is specific to the dry season criteria.
Dry season.
Yep.
So when we do the dry season plus 20%, is that above the wet season?
Not even close.
Okay. So
Yeah. Something like 10 MGD is the dry season capacity, and the wet season, and the wet season capacity is about 53.
okay, so
Yep.
the environmental issues that we are trying to address, are we addressing that for the wet season with the new wastewater treatment because it cannot handle all of that capacity in the wet season?
So the effluent criteria for both the dry season and the wet season as compared to the City of Portland's current capabilities with the Tryon Creek facility, it's a higher level of treatment in both the dry season as compared to the wet season. So that 50% reduction in pollutants that go to the river that I referenced, that's during the dry season, right? And then during the wet season, there's an increase in the volume of water that is treated through the facility.
And during the wet season with the new facility, are we still within compliance of the new requirements?
Exceed the requirements of, we exceed the new requirements.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Councilor Afghan, we'll come back to you.
Yes,
We can just
thank
move
you,
on. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Wendland.
I only have 8 questions. No, just kidding. So is Portland on board? I mean, we're pretty much copacetic. Everyone's good?
Yes. I'll call him out. Paul Sudo from the City of Portland is actually here in attendance, and I appreciate him being here. But I specifically asked him that question before I got here, as I wanted to say that Portland's on board. Am I safe to say that? And the answer is yes. So Portland supports this project still currently, yes.
Great. We were going through the DEQ permit process, and now we have a new way to process it. Is that all copacetic, and we're all good with, we're on the right path and an efficient path to get the DEQ permit?
We are. We're in regular communications with people from DEQ, and to thank Portland again, Amanda Haney is a fantastic permit coordinator for the City of Portland, brings a ton of experience that Lake Oswego doesn't have because we haven't been coordinating this permit. And her advice and guidance has led us to a really great path that we just need to keep marching down to transfer the existing permit from Tryon over to the new facility when that time comes.
Okay. And then going back to that 6% coverage of major components, is that, in your experience, because you have so many plants that you run, is that going to leave you in a good contingency position? Or is that kind of running, I mean, is it skinny or fat as far as parts?
So I think a couple of things we take very seriously, our responsibility to maintain the assets of those who contract with us. So I don't believe it's skinny. I'll start there. The other thing that we've worked together with City and the OA is the fund for that reinvestment. We commit to, you guys need to put this much money aside, and we won't exceed that. However, that money, the city's money is only spent as needed. So we will, on an annual basis, provide updates to the maintenance that we've been doing, a little bit of forward-looking, how are things looking, are they, longer, are things lasting longer than they need, et cetera. If we program a pump to be replaced in year 5, but we sit down in year 4.5 and say, wow, this pump hasn't had much runtime, we think it doesn't need to be replaced until year 7, and the city agrees, you keep that money.
Okay.
So we've been appropriately conservative to make sure that we are able to maintain things at a high level. But if we don't spend that money, it sits in your bank account and not
Okay,
ours.
for later spending on something. Okay, and then on the 50% improvement on dry, what's the improvement on wet?
It's a little bit harder because it's a flow criteria. So the new effluent permit will be reduced by approximately half, right? I mentioned that, and that's the effluent criteria. The criteria from a concentration-based, I didn't do that math. I didn't do that calculation. So we will treat more flow. The instantaneous concentration does not change, but more of the flow will receive treatment. So that's a value that I could provide. I could do that.
Well, I guess so we're not going to go way down. I mean, we're not going to go below what we're doing now in the wet season.
In terms of the concentration?
Level of treatment.
Right.
Level of treatment?
Compared to
Oh, no, it'll be a higher level of treatment in the wet. Yes.
So we're,
yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Because depending upon when the plant opens, if it's in the wet season, when the mayor drinks a glass of water on the processed thing, is it different? Is it better to be in the dry season or the wet season? Just
Dry
kidding.
season, dry season.
Be in the dry season, right? So I guess big comment on, the number of people to run the plant. What's your FT, your sort of?
Yeah, so I think the number is 10.7 operators, and so that includes management staff, laboratory staff, operators specifically, right, that are making process decisions at the plant, visualizing, what's going on within the facility, maintenance staff, and then some cadre of support from the regional and national folks that I talked about, like a full-time equivalent, half of a, administrative or, process oversight kind of thing. So almost 11.
And that's to run 24/7.
The facility runs 24/7. The facility is not staffed 24/7, and that's very consistent with, kind of standard approaches for wastewater facilities. But it is monitored and controlled with a computer system 24/7. If there are alarms that come up, we call out to our staff who can respond in a very reasonable manner.
Okay. And then I guess my last comment is just, I think while it's going to cost more, I think the level 4 or whatever you call it with the earthquake ability, that is really important and it's well worth the investment. And so, I mean, that's, we didn't initiate that. The state of Oregon gave us that opportunity to participate. I do think it's very valuable, and I do, in the report that you did make, I'm glad to see that you're really aggressive on replacement parts and the operating of the plant so that maybe we'll have a relationship for 100 years with, way past when we're around. But,
we'd love that.
But the big picture is that we want this to be somewhat like, earlier we were talking about ash trees in the parking lots versus ash trees in their natural environment, and they can live 125. I'd rather have a really nice natural environment that we can invest so it's long-term, because God help the city council 100 years from now having to go through this process again. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Councilor Wendland. Councilor Mans.
Thank you for the great oversight on this. I just had a couple of questions. I don't know if they can be answered. There's always a lot of talk about microplastics and removing microplastics. She's nodding at me, yes, there is. As well as pharmaceuticals in our waste flow. Is that technology available, or would that be kind of a future plug and play? Should something become available that was cost effective?
So that technology is not available, I would say, not practically.
Not practically.
Or commercially
financially
available,
right?
Folks like Stefan, the city of Portland, respond to regulatory requirements. There are no regulatory requirements to address microplastics, but probably has something to do with the commercial availability of those technologies. However, this facility can easily accommodate, maybe with some more land, right, any kind of additional technologies that would become available should those regulations come into place and/or the technologies become available.
Got it, within that 70 to 100 year span. The other question that I have is on, and I'm not 100% understanding this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. On atmospheric exposure, both in the plant and out of the plant, if we, and perhaps I'm not reading this or didn't read it correctly, if rain becomes harder, if rain becomes more aggressive, I would imagine if humidity goes up within the plant, as well as the structure itself, I'm not 100% sure of the materials, would that then impact the maintenance monies that would be needed to maintain that?
I think that I guess let me speak to the the intensity of storms, right? And
Thank
the
you,
volume of
thank you,
storms,
yes.
right? As
Right.
our climate evolves. I think that we talked about that high peaking factor, like 53, wow, how's that compare to the
Exactly.
likely? And so one thing that I will credit both the city of Portland and the city of Lake Oswego with looking at not only their treatment systems, but their collection systems, is designing for a 25-year storm event. So that's like a less frequent event when you look at historical data. Maybe it's not, it becomes more frequent,
become
right?
the new normal, but
Exactly.
right now,
So
yes.
the industry standard and the state requirements are that you look at a 5-year storm
Okay,
event. So I think that the city in their planning has appropriately been forecasting and thinking about how to make sure that their facilities respond to those more intense storm events.
Okay,
And this
and-
facility is designed to do so.
And final question, if I may. Thank you. With our Lake Oswego Tigard Water Project, we decided at some point to put in generators, self-standing generators, because of problems with lines in our climate here in Oregon. Would that be something that would be built into that, or again, would that be an add-on that the city could take a look at as we go through the DBOM?
It's included. Standby backup power is included in the design.
Yeah, like to power the plant over, it is included.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mans. Councilor Burdick?
So I'm just curious to understand a little more about some of the sustainability features, or maybe, again, what things can be built on later. Because I think that's something that's very important to me, is I realize that we might not be able to do everything out of the gate, but I don't want to limit ourselves in the future. And so, and also wondering, I know you just kind of mentioned, well, down the road, if we have enough land. So again, do we need to keep some open land open? What do we need to do to make sure that this plant, again, can be adaptable, so it can become even more energy efficient? I don't know if we've looked at the use of brown water and, any of that yet. I think that's probably future, but I'd love to hear a little more about that.
So we in the wastewater biz look at these facilities not as waste, but reclamation facilities. It is the ultimate in recycling, right? So when you think about what are the obvious things that can be recycled, the effluent is certainly one. And I think that long term, tapping off of the end of this plant and providing a reuse system potentially to the Foothills Park, potentially to the Foothills District, is a choice opportunity and quite obvious. And so that would require some additional level of treatment. That treatment could be provided at the treatment facility, could be provided within each individual building, or as part of the Foothills District plan. So not at all precluded, completely available. Second would be potentially heat, right? So same kind of consideration, right? There's opportunity to grab that effluent, provide some measure of heating, district heating for the Foothills District. Again, more if possible. That's also completely available, not part of our plan, but not precluded at all. And then the third resource is the solids, right? The biosolids that leave the facility. So right now, Tryon Creek, it's a City of Portland facility. They haul the solids from the Tryon Creek facility to the City of Portland's main Columbia Boulevard facility. That will continue with the Lake Oswego treatment facility. Those biosolids are beneficially reused, land applied in Eastern Oregon as fertilizer. City of Portland will continue to do that. As things evolve in that kind of space, maybe there's more opportunity to do more with that, provide enhanced treatment. That treatment would occur at the City of Portland's Columbia Boulevard facility. There's not sufficient room here to do that, but also not precluded. Does that help?
Could you talk to us a little bit about, are there examples of other facilities you operate where you're capturing that heat in the effluent?
Not off the top of my head. We've also yeah, not an option here. We looked at microhydro in some facilities. But not off the top of my head, I know that we have done it elsewhere. Yes.
If you can send information to us, it would be,
Sure.
the community is very interested in the geothermal. Thank you, Councilor Burdick. Councilor Corrigan.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. I've learned so much. I just have a couple of things I want to verify. So the plant is designed to take care of the 4,600 state mandated units that we have to add in the next 20 years, right?
That would be embedded in the planning criteria.
That's right. That's embedded in the planning criteria for the growth and flow increases over the time. And that's using metro growth projections. Yes.
Okay, great. So I remember 1996, and I think what I'm hearing is that if we had an event like that again, we will overflow. Right? We can't afford to build for, was that a 100-year event?
So the,
It depends. It depends on how that storm comes.
Yeah.
So it's also another thing I'm realizing as we go through this presentation that I'm not sure the fundamental concept has been, it may be known, but I haven't explained it, so I feel like I have an obligation to explain perhaps the obvious, but maybe not. The flows in the winter are higher than the summer, not because humans are creating more waste. It's the water, right? So, okay, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page there.
We drink more during the winter.
Right, we drink more, we're seasonally depressed, so we're generating more waste. No, it's jokes aside, it is inflow and infiltration from groundwater, from stormwater entering our system. So as Michelle was talking earlier about the type of treatment improvements realized in the winter, a couple things. Improvements of wintertime flow are harder to realize to begin with because that wastewater is already diluted so much with stormwater. So improvements to the existing level of treatment are harder to come by. And then two, the level of pollutants in the flow is diluted as well. So it's less of a concern. And so especially when we get into these storm events, the pattern in which it falls makes a big difference. So if we had a very intense storm spread out over a week, we could pass it through the plant. If we had a 4-inch storm in 15 minutes, that might give us a problem. And so it really depends on the type of storm that is realized. And then it also depends on the timing of what the river is doing. Because if the outfall of the plant can put forward more effluent when the river is lower. So there's less weight of water above the outfall that reduces the amount of water it can put out, the lower it is. The higher the river is, the more force is down on that outfall, the more force is resisting the water from being released, and the less we can get through the plant. So that becomes the bottleneck. And so it matters a lot, the timing of the rain and the level of the river. So if that rain were to hit in like a 3-day storm in which it hadn't been raining a lot before then and the river was down, again, we'd have a higher capacity. But if we got like a 3-day storm after maybe 48 hours after we just had a 5-day storm and the river was up, near flood stages, again, the plant could be in a difficult situation.
Okay. Then my last question had to do with geotech, because I know whenever you build a house or anything, the surprises always come in the excavation. And I'm wondering, do we feel pretty good about what is in the space we're going to excavate? We're pretty well verified on that. How do we feel about it?
I'll do it, and you can say how good you feel about it. So we have taken really two efforts at this. So our original proposer, EPCOR, had performed quite a bit of geotechnical analysis on it. And then when we started with Jacobs and they submitted their statement of qualifications, if you remember, I came here and got approval for special procurement to say, I'd like to get Jacobs to do more geotechnical analysis, which they then supplemented that original data set we had to have an even more robust idea of what's going on below the ground.
This is a challenging site, and geotechnical considerations, you can't see them, so they're hard, right? So it's a very good question. What we have done is collected as much data as we can. There are some large buildings currently still on the site. So Stefan referenced that we would look to break ground in December. Our intent is to get the buildings out of the way and do a bunch of geotechnical work while our design is progressing, so that we have time to understand what's truly there beyond what we've interpreted from the data that we have and react, so that we don't come to you with a scheduled delay claim, right? So we feel like as good as we can. How about that? And we're hitting it hard because it is, a pretty common risk.
Great, that's great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilor Corrigan. Councilor Afghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember that the federal government put some moratorium on building near wetlands or in areas where there is a flood that could impact. And I believe our space was part of that condition. Have we resolved that, or we're still in the application mode?
I can speak to that. So yes, you're referencing a issue between the EPA and FEMA about how they manage the floodplain and the Endangered Species Act. And so we have resolved that by Jacobs design, which in careful consideration of the floodplain code provides a design that doesn't trigger that floodplain remapping of the area.
And you also referenced wetlands. There are no wetlands within the site.
Thank you so much. I remember that was a big deal to us because it could have killed the project down there. On the climate change topic that Councilor Mons brought up, if we look at 25 years from now with the climate change data that we have, does that cause us to design the building differently? And this may be a question you may want to think about it as opposed to giving me an answer right now. So 25 years from now, we know some of the regions are going to have more drought and some of the regions are going to have more rain. And if we're going to have more rain, do we want to design our building differently such that we wouldn't have more maintenance problems? This is going to come down to a cost. Whenever we have a number, we're all going to be discussing how much does it cost and can we afford this? So this question is for Jacobs Engineering, and you cannot look at them after I ask the question. Our goals are given to you, and obviously they're very similar to Wilson Will and so on and so forth. Does Jacob have any ideas how to drastically reduce the cost? Because we have fiscal responsibility that you saw as part of the our roles and the project goals. And I'm not looking for answer, but I'm wondering if the process allowed for cost reduction and not $100,000 here, $50,000 there, substantial cost reduction.
Councilor, if I may, we are, we'll get into that, definitely. We are in active contract negotiations with them, and one of the areas that we're working with Jacobs is to provide exactly what you're talking about, areas of, areas of relatively modest cost savings, but also looking at more drastic solutions as well. And so we will get into that, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, there is that because of where we're at in the negotiations, why tonight we're not talking about the cost, but obviously that is a big component of this project that the public will be very interested to know.
But you
so
know
it's
our
forthcoming.
position.
Yes, we like everyone else, low cost.
If I can just jump in real quick, I'd be remiss if when we're talking about the floodplain item, I did not give enough credit to Jamie Roberts, who is the city's certified floodplain manager, and she's done an amazing job of making sure that we navigate that very difficult, tricky situation appropriately. So I just wanted to take a minute to say that.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the great engagement tonight for providing these updates. You know, we have been waiting for, to hear this news about how we're advancing this project forward. It's been a long time coming. And colleagues, thank you all for the great questions. You know, this council has been in the business of ensuring that we can, that today we're making the decisions to meet, you know, tomorrow's needs. And this is a critical project, and we're glad to have you as a partner on board, and that continue to work with the professionals, ensuring that you know, this is a project that the community can trust, that it can stand behind, and that is going to serve us, you know, in the long term and meet our needs. So thank you all for the updates.
Thank you. Well done.
Hey, thank you. All right, colleagues, information from council. Councilor Corrigan.
So I'm a liaison to the Community Health and Resiliency Advisory Board, also known as CRAB. And these guys they're going gangbusters, and they have a 4 from Your Door program. I don't know if you've all heard about it, where they're working to connect our community, especially with regard to emergency prep and whatever else neighbors may need, be able to work together. So I just wanted to let you know that they have arranged for Lake Oswego Fire and Police to hand out the door hangers on National Night Out in August. Yeah,
Great.
so I think that'll kick it off.
Great.
Yeah, good for them.
Councilor Corrigan. Councilor Boo.
Yes, I represented the mayor who couldn't make it to the graduation of our Youth Leadership Council. We have around 8 of them who are leaving for college, and they are all in Ivy League colleges. It was wonderful. I think we had a great party, and I didn't talk 20 minutes. You know, it was fun. And
Talked 2 hours.
no, honestly,
Oh.
yeah, like around 10 minutes, a great speech, you know,
Of course.
and it was really wonderful. I just want to say that to say we are in good hands with the youth we have. They're really amazing. I'm repeating that like one of the youth, because it's kind of something he knows about necropolitics, developed by a friend that Achille Mbembe, who is a scholar known around the world. When he asked me if I know Achille Mbembe, I was shocked. The boy is 17. He knows, like, he's going to Stanford. You'll hear from that kid, I'm telling you. No, I'm very serious. He'll be among the thinkers that you talk about in the world. I know that. And more as a, you know, I think one of the girls also have a scholarship that's but we are proud of them. And the other thing was Pride was 2 weeks ago. It was wonderful. Our friend Poison was there, and Joe and I, we had Councilor Afghan, we had city manager, and we had Rob Wagner, president of the Senate. It was wonderful. I really was very proud of Lake Oswego. It was big. It's getting bigger every year. So yeah, that's something and I scored a goal Sunday.
Good job.
Parks and Recreation, thank you, yeah. So.
Thank you, Councilor Boo. We had the Sustainability Advisory Board last night. They heard from our two code enforcement officers, as well as one of the police lieutenants, was there to talk about, just kind of code enforcement in the context of the gas-powered lawn equipment, what some of those challenges are. Code enforcement essentially gave them one of the kind of noise ordinance presentation they gave to us a couple, I think in the pickleball context, I believe, and just to illustrate how challenging and how busy code enforcement is, and just really diving into some of these neighborhood dynamics that come into play, how sometimes code enforcement can be weaponized as well, and the just some of those neighborhood considerations, that come into play as well. So it was really good. And SAB, we have tasked them with coming back to the council with some options, on carrying gas-powered lawn equipment forward. They are definitely, chewing on things, but also ready to, they've been talking about this for a long time, and I think they're ready to stop talking about it. It's taking up a lot of time. One of the SAB members they gave was given some time to present an idea of doing more kind of community-type bike rides, closing some of the streets, which, has logistical challenges and stuff. I mean, they're a lot of fun, but I know just from doing past ones that they can be challenging. But it's a great effort that, seems to have wide support from the SAB, and so they're going to try to carry that forward, and just in some ways promoting just folks getting out and on the bikes. It's always fun. You can do it, So maybe there's something we can do to help in that process too. But yeah, those are my updates. So, Councilor Mance.
Thank you. I sat in on the Library Board Advisory Committee. I missed the Salt and Straw goodbye party, unfortunately, but the committee meeting was dynamic. What a high-powered group of people who are excited about a new library project, putting together professional-level presentations and pieces of work and generating ideas. So I was stunned. I was so unprepared for this meeting. I can't tell you, but the group is awesome. New folks will be coming on who are just as qualified. So I'm excited to move forward on that. I will say that within the meeting, they are very aware of the challenges that this particular issue faces, but boy, we are so fortunate to have the volunteers that we have.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Mance. I forgot to, just at the regional table real quick, we've been talking about the IBR, the big bridge, and the kind of current plan is they're going to phase it out, different phases. And in 2028, they would start doing some kind of a pre-completion tolling to help pay for the project. A lot of the discussion is around, well, if you're tolling the I-5, traffic's going to divert to 205. How come you're not tolling that? Of course, tolling another interstate, that's not, they got permission to toll the I-5, it's federal, permission, so they can't just start tolling the 205. But 205 is already really congested, so the project's response to that as well, people aren't going to go sit in gridlock traffic to save a couple bucks, all that. But those toll rates are not yet known, and the project does still remain large and will be these phases put forth over a long period of time. There's also a lot of interest in it's being built with the light rail transit infrastructure or space in place, but not yet that infrastructure, and not yet carrying that infrastructure all the way to the Vancouver City Center, which the city of Vancouver really wants to stop at the Vancouver waterfront. We've learned that it's a short distance from the waterfront to the terminus, the Evergreen terminus there, but a very complicated connection, so very costly. So they're trying to do what they can. There's a lot of this. Well, there is the toll revenue, but a lot of it's being funded with federal, large federal kind of mega project funds as well. So anyway, that project is actually coming this week to JPAC for this MTIP amendment to start funding these initial phases of it. And then there's also a big closure of the I-5. Maybe you know about this summer. for Rose Quarter, yeah, which is also important to go together, separate projects, but yeah, that's a big closure, big disruption. And then, I don't know if Lynn attended the C4 retreat on our behalf this recently, which was great. I don't know if Lynn wants to share any that and anything else.
There we go. The microphone didn't want me to talk about C4. It was held out at Villages of Mount Hood, and there was pretty good representation of elected and staff. The major conversation, just as it was here, was about economic development and the role of the county, and how does the county support the cities in moving forward with economic development. So I think it was the first time that C4 had taken on the topic, because they've relegated themselves to land use and transportation over the years. So I think we'll see more coming out of the county of how they might be able to help. They did bring up the CPACE work that they had already done on our behalf, so that we could get going with the North Anchor Hotel. So that was one of their first big things out of the gate to help. So, and then there's a very small portion on transit, because all of the cities in the urban area, and there's like 5, maybe 6 different transit districts in Clackamas County versus the other counties where there's 1 or 2. So just trying to get organized around all that transit needs, and how to fund it going into the future, and how to get coordinated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we are now going to convene.
Did you want any more?
You have more?
I just wanted to go over some of the events coming up. You guys have been really great about attending the events this summer. I just want to bring your attention again to the Juneteenth, this coming Friday, with the Lake Oswego School District at the Lake Ridge Middle School. And then just bring your attention to the fact that next week we have our facilitated retreat on Wednesday, the tour of the Wilsonville wastewater treatment plant as well. And then the big events of the season that are new, that y'all asked for, the LORAC patio live and local at the LORAC, which has been overwhelmingly subscribed to. And get there early if you want food. That's all, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, a lot to look forward to. Now, the City Council will now convene an executive session, and I'll ask Ms. Tatoyan to please read the statutory basis.
The Lake Oswego City Council will now meet in executive session under ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No final decisions will be made in executive session, and at the end of the session, we will adjourn the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We will recess. This will conclude the broadcast portion of the meeting. We'll recess, and then we'll reconvene in the side room.